From the very first second the room felt different, as if everyone sensed that something rare was about to happen. The audience settled into their seats, still buzzing from earlier performances, unaware that the next act would deliver a moment they would remember for the rest of their lives. Backstage, a small Filipina girl stood with her hands gently pressed together, breathing slowly as though she was holding her entire world within her chest. Her name was Emma-Sophie, and although she was only 15, her presence had a quiet strength that hinted at a story far deeper than anyone could see. She kept whispering to herself that she was ready, that this was the moment she had dreamed about since she first learned what music could do to a person's heart. She had watched countless performers walk onto that stage through an old, slightly cracked phone screen back in the Philippines. She had imagined herself in the same spotlight, imagined singing in front of Simon Cowell, imagined hearing the roar of the crowd. But now that she was here, the reality felt so overwhelming that her legs trembled just a little. A stagehand approached her with a warm smile and told her it was time. She nodded, swallowed hard, and stepped forward. As she walked toward the stage curtain, her mind drifted to the people she wished could be here, the community that raised her, the neighbors who passed around donations when her mother fell sick, the friends who recorded her singing in small village concerts, cheering louder than anyone else. She carried all of that with her now. Each step felt like honoring them. The curtain opened, and a wave of bright light washed over her. Thousands of faces blurred into one great, expectant glow. She blinked gently, forcing herself not to shy away. She lifted her chin, kept her shoulders steady, and walked to the center. The room fell into a curious silence. Some audience members tilted their heads, trying to guess what kind of performance such a soft-spoken girl could possibly give. The judges looked up, each one studying her carefully. Sophia looked intrigued, Heidi gave an encouraging smile, Howie leaned forward a little, but Simon Cowell, he simply stared with that analytical, unreadable expression he was legendary for. Emma-Sophie met his eyes for a brief second. Her heart fluttered, but she did not look away. Not this time. She had not come this far to be timid. They asked her simple questions. Her name, her age, where she came from. She answered politely, her voice small but steady. When she mentioned she was from the Philippines, a soft murmur rolled through the audience. The Philippines had produced many great singers, but they had no idea this girl was about to set a new standard. When Simon asked what song she would be singing, Emma-Sophie said the title with a gentle breath, and the audience reacted with a mix of excitement and doubt. It was a notoriously difficult song, one even many adult performers avoided. It demanded power, control, emotion, and a technique beyond her years. Simon raised one eyebrow, as if asking her silently, "Are you sure?" She nodded. The music began slowly, just a single note from the instrumental track, and Emma-Sophie closed her eyes for a moment. She felt the memory of her father's voice telling her to sing from the heart. He was the one who used to lift her up so she could sing to the birds sitting on their roof. He used to tell her that the world listens differently when the singer feels every word. His voice was gone now, lost years earlier, but she carried the warmth of it like a shield. When she opened her eyes, something had shifted. She took her first breath, and the first line flowed out with a softness that brushed across the crowd like a breeze. People leaned in, almost unconsciously. Her voice was clear and angelic, but beneath that purity was something raw, something shaped by pain and hope and courage. It was the kind of voice that could make a person pause mid-movement without knowing why. The judges exchanged glances. Even Simon blinked slowly, the corner of his mouth dropping just enough to show that she had captured his attention. As the song progressed, Emma-Sophie's voice began to rise, stretching into higher notes with an effortless smoothness. She didn't push, she didn't force, she simply let the emotion guide her. The audience felt it in their chests. This was not merely singing. This was storytelling through sound. Sophia placed a hand over her heart. Heidi's eyes began to shimmer. Howie mouthed the word wow to no one in particular. And Simon slowly leaned back in his chair, arms unfolding, his expression softening in a way the audience rarely saw. It was the moment everyone would talk about later, the moment Simon Cowell, the world's toughest critic, looked genuinely struck. Emma-Sophie reached the first major high note, and the entire room exhaled together. Her voice didn't just hit the note, it soared. It was strong yet fragile, like light breaking through clouds. The power of it vibrated through the hall. Even people watching from the balconies felt it. Whispers spread through the audience. Who is this girl? How is she singing like that? Where did she come from? But Emma-Sophie couldn't hear any of that. She was lost inside the song, inside the story it carried. She remembered the nights she practiced alone on the rooftop, singing into the sky because it was the only place she felt free. She remembered crying quietly when her mother struggled to pay for medicine, and she wished she could help in ways her voice wasn't yet able to. She remembered her teacher telling her she had something special, something rare, something the world needed to hear. Midway through the performance, the instrumental swelled, and Emma-Sophie prepared for the section that frightened even seasoned singers. She opened her mouth, and what came out stunned even herself, a long, perfectly controlled high note that rang through the room like a silver bell. The audience shot to their feet instantly. Some gasped, some covered their mouths, some shouted in disbelief, but Simon did not move. He simply stared, eyes wide, as though he could not look away. The music softened, and Emma-Sophie eased her voice back down with flawless control. Not a crack, not a tremble, it was as if the song had been crafted for her alone. By now, tears were visible across the audience. Her voice carried grief, but also hope, hope that felt like sunlight spreading through a dark room. It reminded people of their own stories, their own losses, their own dreams. She became a mirror reflecting back the things they didn't know how to say. Then came the final chorus, and Emma-Sophie stepped fully into the moment. Her voice climbed higher and higher, each note pouring out with increasing emotion. The audience felt as if they were rising with her, carried upward by a force greater than themselves. Simon's jaw dropped slightly, his eyes locked on her as though trying to understand how such a young girl could command such depth. The last note approached, the note that would decide everything. Many singers attempted it over the years, but few truly mastered it. Emma-Sophie didn't hesitate. She drew a breath deeper than any before, lifted her chin, and released a note so powerful, so emotionally charged, that the entire auditorium erupted into absolute chaos. People screamed, people cried, people clapped above their heads. Some collapsed back into their seats in shock. The sound filled the space like thunder, and yet her voice remained perfectly steady, ringing pure and bright until the very last second when she let it fall gently into silence. For a moment, the world froze. Emma-Sophie stood there, chest rising softly, staring into the lights with tears pooling in her eyes. She didn't yet understand what she had done. She didn't realize she had just created one of those rare, history-making performances that would spread across the internet within hours. Then suddenly, the room exploded. The crowd leapt to their feet in a massive standing ovation, cheering so loudly the walls seemed to vibrate. People waved their arms, some shouting her name even though they had learned it only minutes earlier. The sound was overwhelming, almost frightening in its intensity. Emma-Sophie covered her mouth, stunned. She had never heard applause like this, not even close. The judges rose to their feet too. Heidi clapped above her head. Sophia looked as if she was about to cry. Howie kept shaking his head in disbelief. And Simon Cowell stood. The audience screamed even louder at the sight of it. Simon rarely stood. When he did, it meant something extraordinary. He stood there, not smiling, not speaking, just letting the moment settle, recognizing what he had just witnessed. Emma-Sophie's face crumpled with emotion. When the ovation finally calmed enough for the judges to speak, Heidi started with praise so heartfelt the audience roared again. Sophia told her she had a gift that could touch the world. Howie said she had just delivered one of the greatest vocals he had ever heard on that stage. But everyone waited for Simon. He leaned forward, that familiar serious expression returning, and spoke slowly, deliberately, as though choosing each word carefully. He said that what she had just done was not only unexpected, but astonishing. He said her voice had a rare purity paired with emotional intensity that made him feel something deep. He told her she was special, truly special, and that she had the ability to go all the way. Emma-Sophie covered her face again, tears dropping from her chin. Then something unexpected happened. The crowd began chanting a single word over and over. It started softly, then grew louder, spreading through the room in a wave of energy. The judges looked around, surprised. Even Emma-Sophie didn't understand what they were saying at first. Golden, golden, golden. The chant grew louder and louder until it shook the entire space. The audience wanted it, the judges felt it, the atmosphere was electric, thick with anticipation. Simon looked at the other judges, then at the cheering crowd, then back at Emma-Sophie. His face softened even more. He rested his hand on the buzzer, not breaking eye contact with her. The crowd screamed. Emma-Sophie shook her head slightly, as if the moment was too big, too impossible to be real. And then Simon pressed the button. A massive wave of gold erupted from the ceiling, showering her in shimmering confetti. The audience roared with such force it felt like the building might lift off the ground. Emma-Sophie fell to her knees, crying openly, her hands trembling as she tried to catch the falling gold around her. The judges stood cheering. The crew backstage ran forward, cheering for her. Even some audience members were wiping tears from their faces. Simon stepped onto the stage himself, something he didn't often do, and approached her carefully. He helped her stand, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. He told her she deserved every moment of this and that her performance would be remembered for years. Emma-Sophie whispered a thank you so soft that only he could hear it. She didn't have the strength to say more. As she walked off stage, confetti still clinging to her hair and clothes. The world felt unreal. Contestants hugged her, crew members congratulated her, and someone handed her a tissue she couldn't even use because her hands were shaking too much. She kept asking herself if this was real, if she had truly gotten the golden buzzer from Simon Cowell, the judge she had admired for so many years. She kept replaying the applause, the cheers, the way the audience rose as one. She kept remembering how it felt to sing and to let everything inside her finally break free. Backstage, she called her mother. When her mother answered, Emma-Sophie couldn't speak at first. She just cried into the phone, confetti still stuck to her lashes. Her mother cried too, whispering prayers of gratitude, telling her how proud she was, how the whole village would celebrate tonight. Hours later, after the cameras were off and the stage was empty, Emma-Sophie walked outside into the cool evening air. She looked up at the sky and released a long, shaking breath. She had come to this country with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. And now, that dream was unfolding bigger than she had ever dared imagine. She knew this was only the beginning. But for the first time in her life, she didn't fear the future. She embraced it, because she had found her voice. And the world had finally heard it.